All right. I think I got it right now.
There we go.
Okay. All right. How you doing today?
It's been up and down today.
Yeah. Right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here today. You still there, Leah?
I am. I'm not going anywhere till we're all done.
All right. All right. Well, guys, excuse me. Um, guys, this isn't. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. All right. All right. This isn't a typical live that I would normally do, but it's important that I do this live because what we're doing today is we're holding space for a story that really matters, right? Because it's not just for one family, it's for any family who has ever stepped into this industry, right? And many times I know that we're told it's just a job, go out there and get it. But all of this is part of the industry. We have preservation, we have inspections. Anybody who goes out into the field, especially going out into the field solo, needs to hear this message, right? Because on October 21st, Michael Dodge, he was a preservation contractor, right? And he was shot and killed while he was doing his work at a foreclosure property. Okay. And today we have the honor of sitting with his mother, Lea Dodge. Okay. She didn't have to speak. Okay. She could have stayed silent, but she chose to share her son's name, his story, and, her truth. So I hope you guys really take this in because we have the hopes that this never happens to another family again. All right. So I want to ask you guys as viewers, as workers, as human beings to just listen up with your heart. Okay. So Leah, I want to thank you for being here. And however you would like to start, this space is yours.
Oh, it's been an emotional day, so if I break down a little bit, excuse me. Um, on the morning of October 21st, my husband got up, left for work, like he normally does. We have a 8,000 square foot build we're doing out in Northern Virginia. He had a meeting. He left both his phones in the truck, which is typical. He doesn't want to appear rude when you're trying to get things straight. So he got back to the truck and both phones, because my husband owns two companies, had multiple missed calls. And he started calling people back and he kept getting, "Oh, thank God you're okay. Oh, thank God you're okay." And he finally was like, "What are y'all talking about?" Well, we are on the restoration side of this business and we do emergency service work as well. Uh, and when you do restoration, more so than preservation, you deal a lot with fire, EMS, and the police when you show up on scene. A house has been, caught fire and been put out, and you have to do what you're supposed to do. There are investigations, so on and so forth. And we run into each other a lot. And a friend of ours who also volunteers for Stafford, volunteer fire, EMS, one of those. I'm not going to give any names out because that was a big deal that day. They called and said, look, what I do on the side, volunteer-wise, and we had a victim of a shooting on Mountain View Road, and his name was Michael Dodge. And my husband was, what are the odds? So he started making phone calls, and no answers. Now, I don't know, if y'all have seen the pictures, my husband is a large man. So
Right.
also a leader. He does not like to wait for things to happen or wait for answers. He drove to the crime scene. It wasn't hard to find because the road had been blocked off, and he approached hands up with his license out and explained that he thought the victim might possibly be our son. They sent two more people down from the scene. They spoke to him and directed him to the Stafford County Sheriff's Office, and he was interrogated. We're not upset about that part because who shows up on a crime scene knowing the victim's name that hasn't been released?
Right.
So that was taken, the way it was. It's part of the job. It was explained to them, that they thought it was him. And after back and forth with some pictures, it was concluded that it was our son.
Wow.
We might have found out on the evening news had it not been for that friend.
Oh, wow. Wow. Can can you tell us a little bit about Michael and who he was beyond the headlines that everybody else is, seeing out there?
He was the friend he wanted to have. He had a big heart. He was always helpful. Like we have neighbors across the street, and God bless this, old man in his 70s who could climb a ladder and clean his gutters. We would watch him like our hearts would leave our body. It's like, go, and he would run. And he would go clean the gutter. We have neighbors who have kids that don't help their parents or don't help people, don't help around their own house. And he go help take down the pool. If I wanted, as far as, what traditionally in my house, Christmas starts on November 1st. So that's when lights got broken out. It didn't matter if it was raining or, 10 degrees and the wind was blowing, he'd be out there. It was a family event. We'd have music on and be hanging our lights.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, do you want to, within the family, I was like, well, what do you want to? I don't need anything. He is all over my home. He is in the basement that I finished. That's finished. Him and his father built it, finished it over a period of 3 years. He, did all the tiles. But, the only thing they didn't do was the bathroom. But it's, a whole pool room and a media room and his bedroom, because it used to be his down there before he moved out on his own. My decks, my sheds, everything. He's all over my home.
Right.
He was just the person that, if you needed help, he was going to show up. If you called him, he didn't say no. Whether it was a bad date, a flat tire, he would be there. He was that person.
It sounded like he had a very huge heart.
He did. He was very family oriented. I mean, also go back and forth when they have their moments, but at the heart of him, he was just a really good hearted human being.
Right. Now you said he was doing the restoration part, right? Because that's what you guys were doing.
So,
okay.
Actually, my husband started this company the year Michael was born. So it's 35 years that my husband has been doing insurance restoration.
Right.
Like I said, when he was younger in his 19 and 20s and stuff, he did evictions. He in DC, he's done repossession. He's done snow removal in the winter. Anything that pays to take care of his family. And that's what my son grew up watching and modeling.
What did he like most about his job? I mean, what part of the job did he like most of it?
He loves working with his hands. Like one of the things he got us, I can't say he got us, but he made it for Christmas was a coffee table. And inside the coffee table is a tailgate that has, it's a 1948 Dodge tailgate from a truck that he ordered. But the table itself is made of wood from a reclaimed barn that he cut it down, straightened the nails, the whole 9 yards. Everything, he got his younger brother and sister, Madison and Jacob, because he's 18 years older than Madison and 19 older than Jacob. He made them boxes with dart guns in it, little, replica army ammo boxes.
Right.
So he likes working with
Wow.
his hands and having something to show for what he did. Like even on fireboard ups, he'd get upset if one piece of the plywood had the blue line down it and the other one didn't. They had to match.
Right.
He was a perfectionist. And he
Okay.
pride in his work. So literally, he loved working with his hands. Like even with Christmas,
Right.
he'd drive down the street before he came in and be like, one of the lights is out on the top. I'm going to take care of that. He just, he wanted things to be like they were supposed to be.
Okay. Very crafty. That's awesome. I love working with my hands as well. So I can truly resonate with him and his use of enjoying to be creative.
He was definitely creative.
So yeah. So Leah, can you tell me what were the last few days, like before this actually happened?
Well, honestly, he was in a spat with his father, so he hadn't come around, and it was like the past like 2 to 3 weeks before this happened. He had started, coming back to hanging around the old crews that still work for us, and it looked like he was making his way back home. Like I said, families fight, they argue, they go back and forth, and that happens, and it was never anything that was unrecoverable from.
Right.
So the man stopped him in his tracks.
Wow. What do you wish people knew about the real human side of this kind of work?
It's hard. It's hard and it's not safe. Like, I would not recommend anybody going out solo on their own. You had mentioned when we talked before, when we were getting to know each other a little bit, that a cleaning lady, went to the wrong house. And she was taken out just, after my son. That article came across my phone today and I read it and I was like horrified. I live in Spotsylvania County and 2 young boys recently turned into the wrong driveway. It was a long driveway. And they were taken out as well. I mean, they weren't even close to the house.
Wow. Wow.
One of the boys, did a ding dong ditch, kick in the door, and ran. He got shot in the back. That's less than 2 miles from my home. A kid I had seen, at Massachusetts High School. And I am not anti-gun, but I'm also self-aware enough to know that I shouldn't own one right now.
Right.
And I think people have to be more self-aware of what they have in their hands when they do that. When they pick that
Absolutely.
up. Like,
absolutely. I can definitely speak from experience on that because I've been doing this since around 2012. I got into this kind of work and the inspection side of it anyway. Doing and I started with the foreclosures, the vacants, and I ran into a lot of different situations that was definitely unsafe, and I was always out there solo. I ran into squatters who were living in the house. Good thing, they were nice enough to just go on their way, but that could have been a different story. And when you mentioned about driving down the long driveways, I used to do like rural areas, and it used to freak me out being out there. Sometimes no cell service and having to drive down these long driveways and not knowing what to expect, just so that I could, make. They were paying like $4 for me to, verify if the house was occupied or vacant or deliver a letter. So I totally understand and I totally resonate, with the dangers that's out there, and sometimes that we don't even think about.
Mistake that rural areas are probably more dangerous than very populated ones. because people are more
Yeah.
protective of their houses, their land. You know, especially again, you might be looking at someone who's losing a house that was generational.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you don't know, but you know, and even my
Right.
husband, who again is a large man, you know, he would tell you, you know, he grew up in Arlington, Virginia, you know, and around Green Valley, which if you're from around where, you know, in Virginia, Northern Virginia, you know what I'm talking about. And he was comfortable there. That's where he grew up. That's when he was transporting cars to earn extra money down into North Carolina that he started, you know, wondering. Because there are fields people can be left in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And, you know, he would tell me
Mm-hmm.
that was more nerve wracking than where he lived.
Right. What do you feel? Because I mean, many of us do this kind of work. You know, we go on these foreclosed houses, these vacant homes, and all these kind of unknown spaces. Um, what is it? What are your thoughts when you hear people say, "Oh, it's just a job"?
Yeah, okay. Then go do it.
Right.
Go do it.
Exactly.
Job, go do it. Because believe me, um, my husband is the go-to guy when something needs to be fixed or repaired or any of that. And they don't come to him because they can do it themselves.
Right.
You know, so go out there. I mean, we're not, it's the stories, okay, that, you know, when my husband did repos, you know, people jumping off their balconies with a gun. Real story. You know, my husband getting a gun pulled on him plowing snow. True story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we did a house where the gentleman lost everything. He lost every member of his family in one shape or form or another. And
Right.
as much as I felt for what happened to him, it really wasn't safe to be around that man at the time. He needed help, you know, and here people are trying to put his house back together. He no longer has his three children and his wife.
Right.
Like, there should have been time in between that, and there should have been help for him. Like, mental health in this country is trash.
Agreed.
You know, I have a lot of friends who are, you know, Marines, you know, vets, and so on and so forth. My father's a veteran. Um, and, no, I mean, and I'm an advocate for mental health. Don't get me wrong. But,
Right.
like, with this situation, there's only so much you can fix or rehabilitate. What was done yesterday
Right.
is not fixable. It's not. The man is not rehab. He's not. There's no rehabilitation there.
Right.
Like I said,
No,
you don't want to be the one that the prosecuting attorney is calling. You don't want to be the person. You know, me and my husband were racing for time on the 21st. I was in Chantilly, coming home in Northern Virginia gridlock traffic, and that is not fun. Um,
right.
all I knew at that point in time was that our son had been unalived. I didn't know how. My husband was leaving the sheriff's office, so he was struggling to, you know, keep it together too. And then, you know, our youngest daughter, you know, she had moved to Birmingham, Alabama in May. So we
Okay.
hadn't, you know, I hadn't gotten the full story. And the news was already calling home.
Wow.
She was at work.
You know that in between time is hard, not knowing and not being there.
Well, you know, thankfully she was at work and was like, I can't talk. I'm at work, and she hung up. And we were able to be the ones to tell her,
Okay.
you know, because there was even no mercy there. Like, how her phone number is not published.
Right. Wow. Wow.
So, like I said, we were able to get a hold of her. We were able to talk to her, let her know what happened, you know, get flights booked and all that to bring her home. But also, you know, put a ban, do not call my daughter. She's 20. She's 4, you know, I don't even know. I would normally know how many states away she is, but numbers of days and time is a little iffy.
Right.
With no family,
Totally
so
understandable.
and it's not
You
bad
know,
talking about it. I was a little emotional when we started because prior I had talked to my father, and there were a lot of questions about why my um, son Richard wasn't at the funeral. He has Down syndrome, and he's nonverbal, which I told you before
right,
when we talked. And we had taken him to a funeral of a family friend years ago. He was distraught. We actually had to remove him. So for his health, we did not have him there. So he really does not know what's going on. He's the lucky one.
right. Wow. I tell you, your story is really powerful, and it really shows, how much we go through, and the things that we see out here. I mean, and knowing when you first realize how dangerous this work can actually be, I mean, and how unprotected, people, workers like Michael, are out here. What kind of concerns or emotions did you feel when you realized how dangerous this work is? I mean, I know you've been in this industry for a while.
I realized years ago, I mean, literally, the last thing, before anybody leaves the door or hangs up is love you, be safe. To all our people, to my friends, to family, to everybody. Like, be safe out there because you don't know. You don't know what's on the other side of the door. Like my husband was explaining to me, he's like, if I knock on a door, it's a homeowner job, I still don't know what's on the other side of that door. You don't
Right.
know what mood that person woke up in. You don't know if it's a tenant. You don't know if it's Martha Stewart on the other side or, somebody who's hooked on meth. You don't know.
Right.
And there are multiple reasons when you knock on that door to back up at 20 feet. Because, again, if you're my size, and, I know y'all can't see me, but I'm all of 5 foot tall. I'm the size of a stuffed animal compared to my husband and most of the guys in this industry.
Right.
Somebody that big. And again, this is me. I'm used to dealing with Siberian Russian bear sized people. My husband, we've been
Right.
together for years. This is not new to me. So it's not, I don't find that intimidating, but I can see where other people would. When he explains
Oh, absolutely.
he's like, and it's not just, number one, it's for my safety. It's to make them feel comfortable. Like, I'm a big dude. And that way you give space, it's respectful. You have it, hi, I'm here for this or whatever. And even, if it is a crazy meth head on the other side of the door, you got a 20 feet head start.
Right. Exactly.
Little Michael did not have a 20 feet head start because there's no way in the world anybody would have thought what was happening would have happened. It was not predictable, which is why, like, my end goal is legislation that these houses need to be cleared by law enforcement before y'all show up or with you.
Right. Wow.
These mortgage companies, they make in the building.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
$200 or $300 to make sure somebody stays alive.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that kind of leads us into my next question. Actually, if you could speak directly to these companies who send workers out into these kind of homes, what would you want them to understand?
If you think it's so safe, go do it yourself. Put yourself in my son's position, and then tell me how you feel. No backup, no law enforcement. You don't know what's on the other side of that door. You don't know, again, if it's a regular job, if that person had, the worst night, woke up with a hangover, didn't know, didn't see well, didn't have their glasses on and thought they were in danger. Anything can happen. So if you think this is okay, then
Right.
put yourself right there. I will be happy to watch from afar. I'll stand at the end of the driveway.
Yeah.
You're willing to
You
do
know,
that.
because
You can't tell me you can't afford, these companies can't afford the $200-300 that it costs.
exactly, exactly. You know, because I believe that these companies, they don't know the real dangers that, that we're in, when we're out there in the field. And unless they actually step foot in the field and put their feet in our shoes, they'll never know.
No.
Unless we continue to, raise our voices about it.
Oh, well, I think I'm a loudmouth. I don't, this is not okay. Like I said, I have a disabled son. I have to be his voice.
Right.
So I'm used to people, throwing rocks at me for what I have to say. They're in positions of power. Um, they don't scare me. They don't scare me. I'm going to get loud and louder and louder until something's done. Because my son
Right.
is not expendable. He was not collateral damage in the earnings of billions of people who would never go out and do this work themselves.
That's right. He was a living being. It was a life.
He's
It
a
was a
good
life.
man. I mean, I don't condone people going like the CEO with the insurance company. I thought that was horrible. It shouldn't happen to anybody. I wasn't a fan of the
Right.
CEO or what he did, but he still didn't deserve that. I'm not a fan of a lot of people that I see bad things happen to, but nobody deserves that.
Right.
Nobody
I
deserves to go out like that. And again, for what? Like I told I believe it was Katie Lusso, that man does not have his house. My son is not home with his dog. What was accomplished?
Right.
Like nothing. Literally nothing. It makes, and that's the hardest part, is that you want it to make sense. But it
Yeah.
doesn't. Like no matter
Yeah.
how, there's no way this makes sense.
You know what? Yeah. I can totally understand. I totally understand. It doesn't make sense. And there's no reason for it. No reason whatsoever.
I'm not sure. I think I told you. I'm not sure. We spoke to the prosecuting attorney's office Friday. My husband did. Our first court date is in 11 days. And if you're a contractor in Virginia, if you do this work, even repos, it's dangerous. Your life matters. You don't have to talk to anybody. Your bodily presence will matter. They need to
Absolutely.
Right? We're a community.
Yes.
It's not. I explained it to you. Like, I hate to say my cleaning lady, but she works, for the company as well. 28 years. Like, she's one of the best humans I know. And when she didn't have anyone to watch her kids when she had to work, she'd bring them with her. So her kids played with my kids. Her little boy and her little girl were the same age as Michael and Alex.
Right. It's become one big happy family.
Right. And then, like I said, as they got older, they helped their parents on the weekends, just like our kids. Pretty much every one of them has worked for us. Like, we didn't.
Right.
A lot of people are like, oh, your kids have a lot of games. They sure do. They bought them. I don't buy that. If they wanted an Oculus, guess who bought it? Who went to work for Daddy? You had to earn it.
Right.
You don't get paid for chores around the house because you live here too. And you should take pride in your house, your home. I get it. I get that it's a valuable thing to people, but it's not any more valuable than people's life.
Yeah, I think that's where a point I think where we've come, where people value things more than they actually value a human life, and it's sad to say, but but it feels so true, because people will protect their things, you know, and they'll kill for it, or
No,
they will.
and I get it. And believe me, I get it. Like, the incident with my husband and the plow truck, he had to back into an intersection. It was a snow emergency, and it was a forest ranger that pulled a gun on my husband. He didn't care that my husband was working. He didn't care that he wasn't supposed to be on the road. He was mad because
Right.
his car got dinged. Well, buddy, if you had done what you were supposed to, none of that would have happened. None of that would have
Exactly.
happened.
Exactly.
Do you think, that plow truck drivers want to be out there for 8, 10, 12 hours?
Right.
Managing
Rather be at home with their
you
family.
know,
Yeah.
that's hard work. And
Absolutely is.
I mean, from the amount of people who get mad about shoveling the snow out from the back of their cars, you would think they would have a little more understanding or something, but the inconvenience, and it's sad to see. Even going through this, I had when I call them my bonus kids, and I have a lot of them come to me and be like, "This is the situation. I'm not getting the help I need at home. I don't feel like I'm being heard. I need you to handle this."
Right.
And I carried myself over there Friday, and I looked at the person and was like, "Are we gonna have a problem? Because if we have a problem, I promise you I'm not in a healthy state to deal with it, but I will."
Right.
And didn't have a problem. Everything worked out fine. I was able to leave the property without having to, call anybody or do anything or receive a phone call, "Hey, you left," and it went sideways. And that
Good.
was for friends. That was for people that I love.
Right.
Sometimes, like I said, life hurts. Life hurts. But if you let it
Absolutely.
knock you down and ball you up, nothing gets accomplished. And I won't allow that to happen with what's happened to my
Yeah.
son.
Right.
I don't want it to happen to anybody's son or anybody's daughter or their parents. Like this, these 4 children now don't have parents because their parents knocked on the wrong door.
Right. That's why you speaking right now, to the masses is so important for, people to hear you. And, because this is your lived experience.
Like I said,
What will,
he's not a social media person. Believe me, he
Mhm.
has lots to say, and he has a lot of, good information as well, which I'm happy to pass along. But, someone's got to say it, and I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it until I don't need to say it anymore.
right, right.
And like I said, believe
So
me,
what,
and been in a lot of conversations and a lot of posts that I don't want to be on. Um,
hmm
I'm walking with grace, and a lot of that, sometimes I don't handle it so well because,
right,
it's hard, it's easy to answer questions when people have genuine questions. Like, why would he need
right,
to be there to change the lock? Well, when the bank owns the property, winter is coming, and when with that, the pipes will freeze if they're not used. So the house needs to be winterized. You have to make sure all the,
right,
everything's locked up. That, the locks are changed because people are not supposed to be in a bank owned property.
right.
You're supposed to
See,
do
these are things that
it lasts so they can sell it again.
right. Yeah, these are things that the general public just doesn't know. When they ask these questions, sometimes it seems silly to us because we're doing it, and this is our job. But to the masses out there who have no idea of what actually is involved in just the different arenas. So, I understand how it can be a little frustrating with, some of the questions, that people have been asking you.
Well, the
and then some of the light that they've, kind of shared the story in.
the time. So, like I said, I try to walk with grace and explain it. Then I realize too, like if I don't know something, I ask lots of questions. It's how you learn.
Right,
So, what I like people to do is learn. Like it's not, no, we don't walk around with a badge or anything, but it doesn't mean it's not any more dangerous or any less dangerous.
right,
Excuse me, I got that a little
right,
backwards.
right.
It is dangerous, and there's not the backup protection. And then again, you've got people out here, and I've had several people tell me, oh, I went and got a gun, oh, I went and got a concealed carry. Um, I don't know that that's the answer. Because I know if somebody shows up and I see a bulge up underneath your jacket, I'm going to be worried about my safety.
Exactly, yeah. That kind of increases, because I've thought about that as well. It feels like it almost increases the threat when you're going up to a door and they're watching you from a window with a bulge, and they're like, wait a minute. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the solution, is other than space, keep your eyes out. Like you said, check the windows, check the trash cans, you know, everything. Check the cars. If it looks like it's not a broke down car and it's something that's used to travel, leave.
Absolutely.
Leave.
Your safety
And
should be number one.
so you can get somebody there to make sure that the property is clear, leave. We actually had one of the girls that she worked for one of the restoration companies that we do work for. She moved
Mhm.
on becoming an insurance adjuster. And the day after my son's funeral, she went in and told her boss, never again. I will not ever do a foreclosure inspection on my own ever again. And
Wow.
that made me so happy. Like her life is worth it. Her life is worth it. She's a good person. Like my husband and my son work with her a whole lot in the field, and I work with her a whole lot, over the phone and through paperwork and things. Like I literally physically met her at my son's funeral, but I had, again, we all know each other. We all, invoices and all that good stuff. So, I'm really glad that
Right.
she did that because that makes me feel better.
I
Knowing
bet.
that
Yeah.
she's paying attention. And I hope other adjusters are also paying attention and walk into their job and tell them, never again will I do that alone
Yeah.
because it's not safe. You do not know what's on the other side of that door, period. Even if you are going to a job that is scheduled, you don't know what's on the other side of that door. You don't know that person, their circumstances, what's going on in their
Mhm.
life. You don't. You knock on the door, you back up 20 feet. You have time to get away. You also are giving them space and, hey, this is who I'm here to take care of this. And that way, they feel more comfortable.
Right.
So there are ways that this doesn't have to happen, but it really starts with you shouldn't be out there alone. And you should be demanding police presence because
Yes.
it's not safe. It's just not safe. Like I said, this economy is not good. A lot of people are not doing good financially. You do not know what's on the other side of that door.
Yeah. I know back in the day, I know it was rough then, especially during the housing crisis. And people were really upset. We had a lot of disgruntled people, right? And so now, I mean, that was back then. I mean, you fast forward to today, and you look at the economy, and just, I mean, it's worse than what it was. And so now people are even more holding on to the things that they have, their physical possessions, and so they're getting more and more attached to those things, and they want to protect those things at all costs. And you
Well,
know,
I'll tell you what, to those people, I'm going to tell you, I give up everything. There's not one thing
yeah,
I would give to have him back. Not one. So, when you make those decisions, understand you might get to a point where you're willing to give up everything to have somebody back. Material possessions aren't shit. Excuse my language.
Right.
They aren't shit. You can buy another house. You know how people are running around living in their cars and kind of loving life right now because they don't have a mortgage.
Yeah.
You can rebuild. You know, it's hard work. It's not going to be easy. Believe me, we've, done hundreds of thousands of dollars of work that we didn't get paid for. That we've had to,
Right.
and reroute and make things work.
Hmm.
But to take somebody's life over a material possession, that's just evil.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. What would what would honoring Michael look like right now in action right now?
In action right now, it would be if you're in the area, you could show up on November 20th, 8:30 in the morning, Stafford General District Court. If you're from afar, you can write a letter to the court explaining, how you've been impacted, the things that you've run into on the job, the safety issues, worried about coming home to your family.
Right.
That would help. Say his name. Don't let it die, because you don't. If it was your kid, you wouldn't want it to die either.
That's right. That's right.
Especially over something that literally should not have happened. You know what I mean? Like I said, and again, this is not a dig at law enforcement at all. They have been wonderful to our family. Like I said, even I wasn't even upset about the interrogation because, again, who shows up to a crime scene knowing who the victim is?
Right. Right.
So I do understand that they question him and had questions, and you know, I'm a stepmom. People can say what they want about that. He's been mine since he was 4.
He's
So
yours.
every doctor's appointment, every dentist appointment, every heartbreak, every problem in school, problem in sports because he played football,
Hmm.
every game, I was there. His father was there. His sister was
Right.
there. His brothers were there, but not the other ones. So, opinions are, everyone has one. He's mine.
Right. Yes, he is.
And, well, I mean, he was literally dating a girl, and we were at my great nephew's birthday party. He introduced her. She looked at me and said, "Oh, that's your
Hmm.
stepmom." And I was just like, and he was like, "You won't see her again." And I didn't, ever again. Honestly, somebody said, "Oh, she has pictures." And I was like, "Who's that?" And they're like, "She calls you stepmom." I was like, "Oh, okay." Um, because we were important to each other. Like his relationship with his father, like I said, it gets bumpy, but his father, I think it was 2022, we were sitting downstairs, we were shooting a game of pool, me and little Michael. His dad was
Hmm.
in his ear, and he coughed and he started coughing up blood. It continued for about 20 minutes. We got him upstairs and on the way to the hospital. And from that time on, little Michael would, you know, get up, shower, go to work, and then he'd come here for dinner and he'd spend the night. And he'd go home to shower, go to work, eat dinner here, and spend the night. And it was over a year before I was like, why are you even paying rent at a house? And he's like, well,
Right.
I have to, go home on the weekends and take care of things. He's like, but I just feel like I need to be here in case, dad needs me.
Right.
He was that kid. He's like, I get feelings about people, and I call them and check if they're okay. And most of the time, it's warranted, whether it's a big emergency or a small one. But so I just, okay, if you feel this is where you need to be, then we're good.
Right. Right.
You know, who am I to tell somebody that? Like, if you feel like being around your father makes you feel better because that scared the life out of you, then I'm not going to deny you that.
There you go.
You know, it's
That's a true
like
mother right there.
you're supposed to take care of the people around you.
Absolutely.
You know, and family isn't always blood. You know, you just, you know, what, you know, if they're not trying to weigh your wagon down, that's the people you take care of.
Right. Right.
So, like I
So
said, that's who he was. You know, my daughter said something at his service about, you know, there's nobody to watch the moon and stars with anymore. And it just reminded me of the first time I taught them to watch the moon and stars. You know, we were at the Outer Banks and I had gone outside because it was the first time we had rented a house. We had done hotels, a couple of summers, in a row. And I went outside to smoke a cigarette and looked up and it was the meteor shower. You know, and I just ran through the house like, come on, come on, come on, come on, let's go. And
right.
we had a boy across the street. His name is Joey. He had actually been on vacation with his parents the week prior, and they dropped him off to us, and he stayed another week with us because they were best friends. They hung out every day, all three of them. And he was there, like we laid out for hours, watching the meteor shower, and it was something that stuck with him, with both of them. You know,
Right.
so like I said, it's little things like that.
Yeah, those are the special moments right there. Those are the memories that last the longest, I think. So I know you've mentioned, some of the changes that you'd like to see, like, escorted officer. But are there any other things like any safety policies, any laws, any trainings, or anything else that you'd like to see um, be reformed?
Kind of the entire industry. And I know that's like pretty basic, but like y'all should be working in pairs and should be paid enough to be working in pairs and be safe. Like the jobs, these work orders, none of them pay anything to put your life in danger.
Right.
You're worth more than that. Like I said, with officers, like I said, I believe, working in pairs, doing a property lookup, like checking if the owners had a criminal history. I think we should be able to see if there had been issues with the police prior to the house supposedly being vacated. Because then that might be a clue to, hey, you know what? If they were problematic before they got put out, they might be still there and still be problematic.
Right.
Um, it's a lot swirling around. Like I literally have to write things down, which I have not been good at this week. Like I said, it's just been a lot going on.
Oh,
One of the people that went and got a gun was my father,
mhm.
and that's kind of terrifying. He's 79. But now he's worried about who's knocking on the other side of his door.
Right. Wow.
Like I said, it's had a really big ripple effect, and it touches on a lot of things. Like I said, I'm not anti-gun, but I'm also pretty self-aware. I should have known one for a while.
Right.
I think, I think that y'all should have trackers on you, so your company knows where you're at.
That's a very good idea.
Like literally, if we can track luggage, we can track people with the same tag.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I noticed, in this part of it, in the inspection segment, is that most companies don't really provide any real safety training.
And
I think they definitely should.
I think, like I said, I'm not sure, and I haven't spoken to them. Like I said, they did send flowers. There was something written on his obituary wall, and they set up some kind of scholarship fund in my son's name. And for membership dues and scholarships, called the CIAFTS. And, I'm assuming it's the International Association of Training Field Service Techs or something of that nature. That
Uh
maybe
huh.
that there should be a safety program. Like I said, there should be situational um, scenarios set up. Like police get put through scenarios with gun training.
Mhm.
There should be scenarios set up like that for field techs. Because again, if you're only, it's the statistics show that being trained with a firearm, even only 20% of people react correctly. Like I said,
Yeah.
I'd like to see 20% more people react correctly in that situation. And so I
Absolutely.
don't know that he had time to get away. I'm assuming not, because when he said that he was being confronted aggressively, I'm assuming there was some sort of conversation.
Right.
I do not know, um, but I'm assuming words were exchanged. Now, granted, my son again is non-confrontational. He will not fight if he doesn't have to. If he can de-escalate, he will. So
Right.
I can picture exactly what he did. Hands up, let me call my boss. Backing away. You know, had he had 20 feet, he might have been able to get into his truck. He might have been able to, get out.
Right.
And I really feel like that should be standard operating procedure. If you have to knock on it, and a lady, when me and my husband, were coming home, I forget from where, uh, but it was before election, came and just knocked on the door and stood right there, and I was kind of like, did you not just hear what happened, lady? Like, and you're out here for polling. Like,
Wow.
I don't
Good.
care what side you're on. You don't know whose door you're knocking on. Back up 20 feet. Like, I gave her a whole lecture. Because, like, what are you
Right.
thinking? There's extremism all over the place, and I'm not going to point fingers at sides because that's not how the world works. It goes both ways. And
Mhm.
you don't know who's on the other side of that door. Back up 20 feet. And I had to explain to her why I was so vigorous with that conversation. And then she was like, felt really bad handing it to me. And I was like, save it for the next person I know I'm voting for, but be safe out there.
Right. Right.
Like I said, if you have to like I said, whether it's this kind of job, a trade, inspection, you're out there doing work orders and preservation. If you have to knock on somebody's door or you are taking somebody's vehicle away from them, have a cop on the block. Knock on the door, back up 20 feet. Those are two simple things. Like I said, if you work alone and you're used to working alone, and I get it, sometimes I am not a people person. A lot of times I have certain people I can people with.
Right.
Have a tracker. You know, I mean, I don't see why you've got family locators. Why can't they have their locators for their field people?
Yeah.
If
Absolutely.
someone's there too long, you check on them.
Mhm.
You know,
That's one of the things that I do as far as, making sure my family knows where I'm at because I'm out there solo, is making sure I have a tracker, you know, in case something happens, where I am, you
and
know.
that should be available. They should make it available so the company provides that, and the company has that information as well. Because what's
Agreed.
the average time you have to be at a house doing what you're doing?
Average time, well, when I was doing the mortgage stuff, it was probably less than 5 minutes, but if I had to go inside, about 10 minutes.
Okay, so if your tracker pings you there for 20 minutes, something's off.
Absolutely.
So somebody should
Uh,
be tracking that. Like I said, had my son not picked up the phone, and a lot of people are like, well, why didn't he call 911? Hello, ma'am. How you doing? I'm good.
right.
Yeah, I'm on a live. My middle son is home. His caretaker, that was
Oh, okay.
she's been with us 18 years. She's been taking care of my son. wonderful lady, and little Michael loved her. You know, she was devastated as well. Like I said, it really just it spread so far. And like I said, y'all's lives are valuable. You have communities and you have people, you know, that you take care of too, and they
Absolutely.
won't be
Yeah.
hurt without you. Like I said, it's not just a family. It is the amount of people that my phone was dying 5 times a day when all of this broke off. I mean, it was people reaching out, you know, that had lost their children too. Um,
Hmm.
I've got a friend whose husband, you know, lost his daughter. It's a cold case. You know, that really shook it back for him. And you know, it's like so it's reliving it, and then other people, like I said, it's hit a lot of people, not just you know construction, not just restoration, not just preservation. Like you know, we all you know, and I know with us, we do a lot of horse trading, so we know people who do pool.
Right.
You know, we plow snow. We like I said, there's when you work and you have to work to support your family and you're self-employed, you do what you have to do. You know, whether it's
Hmm.
plowing snow or like when the economy crashed, we survived a lot on gutter cleaning. You know, had our trained crews out there cleaning gutters because it was the only work that was there.
Right. You know, you had to adjust.
Exactly. You know, you pivot, you know, but you know, you do. And like we had tornadoes run through a development not far from here, actually in Stafford County, England Run, you know, and the mortgage companies had to be fought to have the houses boarded up. And these houses were dangerous for people to go in. And like,
Right.
you know, I was a dumb kid and ran around construction sites. I'm sure there are still dumb kids that run around construction sites,
Oh yeah.
you know, and it, you know, took a lot to make that happen. And it shouldn't have taken a lot to make that happen because people could have been hurt,
Right.
you know.
Seemed like that was like second nature to them.
Right. The common theme here is that they're continuing to allow things that let people get hurt.
Right.
And, you know,
So
they need to be held accountable. Like, again, the profits that they make are not small at all. You know, I'm happy with my house just like it is. I don't need a bigger one. I don't
right.
need, you know, I love my truck. Needs a paint job, but I love it. It's mine. I'm happy with it.
Hmm.
I'll ride it till the wheels fall off. You know,
Right.
not everybody needs to have, you know, super fancy this and super fancy that. Like a lot of people just want to go to work, take a decent vacation 1 week a month, you know, 1 week a year, and spend time with their families and keep what they got. You
Hmm.
know, it's not like we're asking for a whole lot.
Right. Right.
And like I said, tractors should be the least of it. I mean, as long as tractors have been around, why hasn't that, you know, that should have been
Yes, that
there.
is such an inexpensive, tool or asset that they can bring into the field and keep at least to at least facilitate some type of safety measures.
Well, I mean,
You
honestly,
know.
we had to get a phone replaced and they gave me three for free.
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, it comes with the line. You don't have to activate it, but if you cut the lines off, your bill's going to go up.
Right.
So it's not, again, this is not something that these companies can't work out a package to purchase the and monitor.
Right.
Like I said, and I mean, people should be out during the day, so it's not like it's something 24/7. You know, start at 6 a.m., end at 6 p.m.
Right.
You should be at work.
Exactly. What?
On those times, you know, then again, you have your family tracker, you got your Norton 360, but you should always, somebody should know where you're at. And I really feel like if you're hired by a company to do that, whether you're, you know, an employee or a subcontractor, they should know where their people are at.
Absolutely. So, I know I have a lot of people come to me, wanting to get into this industry, and I share different aspects of the industry, the preservation. I don't know too much about the restoration, part of it, but it's all part of the industry. So what message would you give someone who wanted to, start this type of work tomorrow?
Um, be safe. Look at where you're going to be working. Look at where, like what if you're interested in this, then you've obviously talked to somebody. All right, and you find out where these people work, what areas, what kind of work exactly. Like so on the restoration side, I mean, we've done work all the way, into the Outer Banks,
Right.
and also up in the Maryland. We can on the eastern shore of Maryland. There was a historic church that we had to demo, and you know, crazy story. Involved a biker group. A little, not tussle, but words were exchanged. Thankfully, it ended peacefully. But also, it doesn't matter where you go. I mean, you just have to be careful. You know, yeah. I mean, I would say, if you wanted to start doing this, find somebody to work with you in a pair. Insist on law enforcement coming in. Be like, look, this property is abandoned. I have a job to do. I'm concerned there might be somebody in there. And if you feel unsafe, like you were saying about your gut instinct, leave. Leave. That work order will be there the next day. That work order will be there until somebody makes sure the house is safe. And that house is safe.
Right.
Unless somebody that doesn't care about their own safety picks it up, then that's a them problem and not a you problem. You did what you needed to do to go back to your family, to the people you love. Because I'm telling you, what you leave behind when you are taken away from your job is devastating. It's literally devastating.
Wait, 1 second, Lee. I'm sorry to do. I'm having a hard time hearing you now. Give me 1 second. Let me put these in. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Audio. Can you hear me okay?
You got quiet on me now. There we go. I think. Is that better?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Listen, I would say be safe. Find safety training. It's out there somewhere. You might have to pay for it, but if you're going to go to work for yourself, it's an investment. It's an important investment. Be properly insured. Like I said, definitely be properly trained and get a tractor. Make sure if you can't work in pairs, make sure somebody knows where you are at. One point that you brought up, make sure you have cell phone signal. If you don't have cell phone signal, leave immediately.
Yeah.
Like I would not even do any further safety check. If your phone has no signal, leave immediately, because there is no work order, I promise you, that is worth your life. There's not one that you're going to pick up at the cost of what you would have made is worth your life.
You're
changing
absolutely right.
What, 50, 75 bucks? It's not a lot. I'm not sure with the preservation side either. Like for us to leave the house, it's like a minimum of $350. $350 is not worth your life. It's not.
Right. And then if we want to compare just going into the inspection side, especially in the mortgage industry, most mortgage inspections only paying $4 to $10 per inspection. So that $4 and $10 is definitely not worth your life either.
No, and if you have to cover yourself with workman's comp, which a lot of them require, you can buy a cheap ghost policy that doesn't really cost anything. It doesn't protect you. It doesn't help your family if something happens to you. It's not worth the cost. Like you've got to look into all of that, because workman's comp isn't cheap. And after this, I'm sure the rates will go up.
Yeah.
You know, especially
And
between what happened to my son, Katie and her husband. You know, people are going to start realizing, hey, sending these people to do these things isn't exactly safe. We can make more money off of them.
hmm
You know, and it's always the people that are on the ground that are getting hit. You know,
exactly.
with the cost, with the ability to make so much money because, like I said, we're not difficult people to please. We're not looking to be millionaires. You know what I mean?
Right.
Hey, if I hit the lottery, I'm not going to turn it down. But I don't think nobody in this industry thinks they're going to do one job and get rich.
Right.
If that was the case,
Yeah.
my husband wouldn't have been at it for 35 years. You
Point
know what I'm saying?
exactly.
We're
Yeah.
not, that's not what we're looking for. We're just, want to pay our bills, like I said, decent vacation, maybe a little stash in case something goes sideways.
hmm
We're not looking for, we don't need the moon and the stars. We just want to live decent. And,
Right.
$4 and $10 for an inspection, $75 to change the lock. I mean, come on. Look what happened to my son for $75.
Right.
Like
Wow.
it's not worth it. Not
That
worth
is
your life.
definitely
It's
a
not worth your
perspective
safety.
to.
I mean, even had he
Yeah.
gotten away, he could have been injured.
Right.
You could be, what if you do live? You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you couldn't be paralyzed or, otherwise permanently damaged. Like, it's not worth it. It's
Right.
it's important that y'all start looking out, watching for things. Again, cell phone signal. Let somebody know that you're there. Don't go by yourself. I mean, Michael had his dog with him, and I'm sure, in my heart, I see him doing what he could, but who knows?
Right.
But it's just not anything they send you off to do is worth your life. If you don't feel safe, leave. Make sure it's cleared by law enforcement. They'll send a bill, and it's not going to be to you because it's not your property.
Exactly.
And I mean, you shouldn't have to do that, and that shouldn't have to be the approach. It should be standard operating procedure. It used to be standard operating procedure. I don't know what happened to that. My husband did evictions in the 80s in D.C., of all places. And
hmm
the buildings were cleared so work could be done before any trade was allowed in. And what
They
happened to
should
that, I
return to
don't
that.
know. And
Yeah.
it should not have ever gone away. You know, it it's it should be brought back. It should be standard operating procedure. It doesn't make sense to me that it went to the wayside. And I'm sure it went to the
Right.
wayside because of cost.
Yeah. That's where a lot of things go to the wayside because nobody wants to spend the money.
Yep.
But
Well, again, I mean, it's
but
material possessions and money, and I mean, you can always earn more money. You
yeah.
can always earn more money. It is out there. Somebody will hire you to do something.
Yeah.
I have a
Can't
list
get your
of
life back though.
right. It's not like I said. You can do it. We've had to pick ourselves up from some pretty crappy financial situations. And it was a struggle. It wasn't happy. It wasn't easy, but we did it.
Right.
And you know, we can sit here proudly and say, nobody gave us anything. We earned it all on our own, and it's a good feeling.
Right.
I don't know what taking stuff from people feels like. But in my head, I can't imagine that being a good thing.
Yeah.
So, like I said, life gets hard. It gets real hard. Believe me, I mean, it's been a tough couple years.
hmm
On the personal side of life, and a little bit, on the business side. Without this, but you get up, you keep going. Nothing's going to happen if you don't do it. Nobody's going
Right.
to come
Right.
rescue you. You know what I mean? And you
hmm
get so desperate that you would take somebody's life, thinking you can't rebuild is it's wrong. You can. Done it more than once. It's not easy, but what
I
what
know.
the the option to hurt somebody so you don't have to is, I just can't believe that that even exists in people's minds.
Yes, unfortunately it does. You know, I've had my own experiences to where I had to rebuild several times. Yes, it wasn't easy, but I mean, it was what I needed to be done,
Exactly, you know.
you know?
Like I said, and you look at people that are self-employed, and that's what they have is that, okay, I did it once, I can do it again. I can fix, I
Absolutely.
can get out of this. And
Hmm.
we have that spark, to us. My husband has that spark. I mean, he started his company 5 years before we got together, so that was his hard work. Granted, I
Right,
do whatever I can to help him and support him and the paperwork side and all of that. But like I said, in 2007 when the economy crashed, our the restoration side of it depends on fires, bad weather, things of that nature, and there was none of it. Like I said,
right,
we resorted to gutter cleaning. But it got us through. It kept all
right,
the people that were working for him at the time. They got to keep earning money. They got to keep feeding their families. It was a struggle, but you're gonna run into lots of them.
right, right.
Like I said, don't ever get to the point where you think losing a material thing is the end of the world. It's not.
No, it's
Just
not.
losing
You
your
can
kids,
always get that
losing
back.
your husband. You know what I mean? To
Hmm.
something like this, it hurts a lot worse.
Absolutely. So, Leah, how can we, as a community, support you and honor Michael's legacy, that's in a meaningful way?
I will, like I said, if you are close and you're in the Virginia area, bodies on the ground, November 20th, 8:30 in the morning, Stafford General District Court. If you can't be there, write a letter. And like I said, you keep his name out there. Don't let people forget. Don't let people forget this family that just lost, their parents. These kids just lost their parents. There are 4 children now who have no parents because their parents
Right,
knocked on the wrong door. And somebody thought that was a horrible enough thing to take these people's lives. Whether it was done out
right,
of fear or malice or whatever, they don't really, haven't really released that part of that case. So I don't want to, comment because I don't know, what the situation was then,
right.
with that particular happening. But, you know, cleaning lady shows up on my door, I'd be like, yeah, you're at the right house.
Come
I would
on and
think
clean
that was
my
a blessing
house.
in disguise. I
Right.
wouldn't be angry, or
Yeah.
even if I couldn't afford the cleaning, I'm sorry, you're at the wrong door, but it's okay. We'll get you figured out, get you pointed in the right direction. I
Right.
just I don't understand how something like that can lead to the loss of someone's life. Like, it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me. If you're that paranoid, maybe you need to be that, more self-aware. You know, not everybody's out to get somebody. Not, some people are just trying to live.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're gonna be wrapping it up shortly here. Would you like to say Michael's name again before we get ready to close out this conversation?
Michael William Dodge II. Like I said, it could have been anybody, and I don't want it to be anyone else. I really don't, because for a while, I was my husband's only employee, so an emergency service went through a roof.
Hmm.
I'd tarp a roof with him. Now, granted, you know, I'm scared of heights, but you do what you need to do.
Right.
So I've been out there, and I've seen crazy things. Like, I see people, you're gonna, you know, and granted, if somebody told me to look for something because it had sentimental value, I'd dig. But I've had people like, look for things that didn't exist, or just really crazy stuff. Like, and it's ridiculous. Like I said, just
Right.
people are trying to work, they're trying to live, and it should never, never have come down See, my son losing his life, this cleaning lady and her husband losing their lives. It shouldn't come down to, even my nephew, Charlie, has done evictions. And he's told me, they heard me before I heard them. And I was like, looking, considering what just happened, it's like, it's a wonder he didn't get hurt.
Right. Yeah.
Like I said, so, insist the company can get as mad at you as they want. That's not, that's your life. That is your life.
Absolutely.
And if you think that little bit of money is worth it, I mean, I know a lot of us, we take jobs we don't want to because we got to.
Right.
But understand, it's not worth your life. Call for help. Make sure the area is cleared. If your gut says it's wrong, you follow your gut. It's wrong. Get out. Like I said, the work order will be there until you can make sure the property is cleared. Like I said, unless somebody else wants to take it because they don't value their own safety, but there will always be another work order.
Yes, there will.
And maybe
Yes,
in a
there
better
will.
area. Don't put your life in danger for that. Like I said, if you have a wife, I'm sure she wants you to come home. If you have kids, they want you to come home. If it's your
Absolutely.
kid, you want them to come home.
Yes.
Like I said, I don't like the thought that people that do what we do are expendable because they just do construction. Okay, what would you live in if we didn't do construction?
Exactly. Our
So,
jobs are important as well.
yeah, and like I said, we're all human. You know what I mean? We're all just trying to get through and maybe walk with a little more grace. And granted, with my temper, it's been hard. Like
Right.
it would have been a on the 20th away. I can't do things like that. So I'm just trying to go through every day with as much grace as I can. My manners are free. Kindness is free. And if they don't return that back to you, then that says who they are, not you.
Exactly. Exactly.
I would really like for y'all to take care of yourselves and just remember my son. Remember what happened to him. Make sure it doesn't happen to you. Like if you're in a different state, you're going to need to make legislation happen in your own state. What's going to happen here in Virginia is not going to be the same that's going to happen in Maryland, North Carolina, Connecticut, New York, and all that. Like, you're going to have to make these steps too, and I'm happy to help any of you who want to do that. Like, if I have to travel, I have to travel. If I have to yell at a governor, I will yell at a governor. I don't care. I don't care. So, like I said, I can do what I can do here in Virginia, and I can ask for y'all's help. And like I said, a letter, my email is ldodge59@gmail.com, and it is Dodge like the truck. Send it, just title it for Michael. And I will know what it is. I will get it printed, and I will get it in front of the judge. I will get it in front of the police force. I will get it in front of the plaintiff if I need to. I will help you keep your people safe too, because nobody should feel it. Nobody.
Send their.
I'm glad y'all can't see me crying right now. I look like a bug-eyed sloth. Okay, I lost you, Jay. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you now.
Got sound?
Yep.
Okay.
We're back.
All right. I said you're beautiful. Don't worry about it. We understand. How else could you feel at this time? So.
I literally did not know your eyeballs could ache. They can.
Say that one more time.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear you. Can you repeat yourself?
I said I didn't know before that your eyeballs could ache. They can. So
Yeah.
I don't know. A couple people are like, "Well, I sent you this." I was like, "I can't see."
Right.
It might take a couple
Right.
days. I will get to it. His funeral. Um, the people who showed up at his funeral were just phenomenal. It was a little over 400 between the 2 days.
Wow.
So, I know the message is out there. I want it to go further because I don't care what state you're in. You need to make some noise and keep the people safe. And if you need me to lend my voice to it, I will. Because I don't
Well,
want to.
like I've told you, I'm definitely going to be sharing this message every place that I can, and I'm gonna have my community share it out as well because this message needs to go far.
Well, there's so many of us, and that's like I said, getting overlooked is it's not okay. Like I said, we have
You're
families,
right.
children, we have parents, all those things. Husbands, wives out there that are in these situations, and it's not okay. It's not okay.
Right.
2025. Like this is,
Absolutely right.
and we shouldn't have to be doing this, but it looks like this is what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you didn't get to say that you'd like people to hear?
Um, I think I pretty much covered it all. I mean, if anybody has questions, you can hit me up on my messages.
Okay.
Like I said, there's only with the case itself, we can only talk about what is public information. We're not allowed
Right.
to. Like I said, we even have to be careful with who we answer the phone to because apparently, um, not everybody is nice out there in the legal world. So, like I said,
Understood.
and you don't want to be in the center of the circus. Like I said, I don't want
Right.
to, but I'll do what I have to do to make sure that this sticks, that something happens.
Definitely.
My message is
Well, Lea, hmm?
my message is be safe, make it home. Like I said, trust your gut, all those things, because none of it's worth your life. I'm not encouraging
Right.
people to quit. I'm encouraging you to be safe. Find a way. Like you might have an idea that I don't. Like throw it out there. See if it sticks. I mean, see if it's something that's doable. I'm willing to put it.
Right.
The trackers are easy. Companies get bulk deals on phones and trackers.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's not something that I see as not feasible.
Right. Well, you definitely threw out some great ideas. Something, and I'll be researching a little more of what we can do as an industry wide. How we can keep safety as number one, or the different things that we can do to be safe out here until something changes on the company side.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you run into each other on jobs, different trades, and you see something aggressive going on, you know, call somebody, call the police, call somebody
Right.
because it just you don't know. Like we've dealt with angry homeowners, we've got that have like gotten. Little Michael actually had a customer not too far from here who was telling him how to brace the back wall of the garage that had caught on fire. Now, mind you, my son had been running his own carpentry crew since the age of 16. Like I said, he started off in a car seat. My husband took him with him whenever it was safe to do so. Whenever he'd go
Right.
somewhere, little Michael was with him. When he started school, it was only on weekends. But over the summers, as he got older, he worked for his dad. By 16, he was capable enough to send out with his own people.
Right.
The man, argued with him and made some comments that, were about, his ethnicity and told him how to brace a wall and trying to ease the homeowner and not cause a ruckus. He did what the man said, and when the wind blew, that wall fell. And he heard it falling, took off at a run, and he did not make it. So that wall fell on him.
Oh,
Between his shoulder blades and lower, it hit. Thankfully, well, no, it hit his head too because we had to pick the wood out of his head, and the dirt and debris from under his scalp. And one of the guys that was there, his name was Leo, um, must have been terrified. He like lifted the entire wall off my son, all Steve, nasty homeowner,
wow.
pulled him out from underneath, called 911. So we even deal with that. Like if somebody's telling you how to do your job and you know it's not going, that's not the right way, that it's not safe, leave.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
making them happy is not worth you getting hurt. Now, thankfully, even though he did have a pretty large wall drop on him, there was no permanent damage. But there
Oh,
could
thank
be.
goodness. Yeah.
And like I said, just this angry guy, like, looked at him, looked at his age, and thought he knew better. He didn't, obviously, or my son wouldn't have got hit by that wall.
Right.
You know what I mean? So even that, like, if somebody, a homeowner, is making you feel unsafe, telling you to do the job in a manner that is not going to last, could fall through, you could get hurt while trying to do it that way, walk away.
Yeah. I mean, those are times where you have to walk away, or where you should walk away because you could be putting yourself in, a situation that you don't want to be in.
Well, the ass killing he got that day. As, we're helping him, get put back together and get stitches and all that. It's like, don't you ever do anything like that. And you know what you're doing. You've been doing it for a long time. If you had not,
Right.
you wouldn't have been out there in the field.
Right.
Like, you've earned that spot. Don't let anybody tell you that you haven't. They haven't watched you work all your life. So again, you know what you're doing and somebody tells you to do it in an unsafe manner, that's also something. Leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's not worth it.
Totally valid.
Um,
Totally valid.
so those are the things that I want. And yeah, I'm going to have to hop off here too. Got to
Right. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story, sharing with us about Michael. Because his story needs to be heard. Your story needs to be heard, and changes needs to be made in this industry. So I just want to thank you for taking the time for choosing me to because it's an honor to be here with you.
I watched the video that you did on him, and then I watched your other content, and I put his name in a search. That was a horrible mistake. Don't do it. Yes. Don't go past Jay's page, please, because you don't need to. Literally, everything that happened is on this live. It wasn't anything shady. He went to work. And then I've seen other people that did it, for the headline, like they're not involved in any side of this industry.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I appreciated that somebody within the industry itself, of all the trades, came out and spoke and also brought up safety tests because, again, I understand how things work and certain things look good in certain arenas. However, the message was left out and that irritated me. Now, granted, again, I'm not angry. People are doing their jobs too. But
Right.
you did your part. Now it's my time to do mine, and safety is the issue.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's the important thing. You handled it with respect. You handled it with knowledge. And I say this all the time, and my friends get really irritated with me, but it's like, I will never hire a bricklayer to give me a Brazilian. Ever. Ever. It's just, stick with the people that know what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about for a reason because they've been there. They've seen that. They know what they're talking about. Like, it's just common sense. You know what I mean? So, but she's got a lot of good information on her page. You don't need to go any further than that. I'm happy with how it was handled. My husband, who I also put it in front of, he was like, she's the one. So we were very pleased with the first video. We're pleased with you giving us a platform to speak. And I do say us. Again, I'm speaking for him and I, for my entire
Right.
family, basically. You handled it well, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was important to me, because I am in the industry, and, I actually put myself into Michael's shoes, and plus thinking about my experiences when I was, doing the mortgage segment. And so it really hit home for me. And so I really wanted to speak about this.
Like I said, you did it with respect. You did it, you didn't try to take my son's dignity, because a lot of people were like, well, this, and I'm like, nope, skip right on by. And so I knew you were the one. Like I said, that was me and my husband were both pleased. And when my husband says, okay, that's the one, he's a good job. And I feel like for the most part, I do get suckered in every now and again, but not too often. But I like the way you speak. You're very plain, you're very blunt. You don't beat around the bush. And this is something that people need to quit beating around the bush about. It's serious. So
yeah, that was definitely something I wanted to change.
I'm thankful for you, and I'm thankful for your platform.
Well, thank you, Leah. Well, it was great having you on here today, and I'm sure my community is going to learn a lot, and hopefully, follow through with putting their safety first, and realizing that unfortunately it was Michael, but it could have been anyone, and it could be them. So
again, watch down her page. She's got great tips, and follow them. Follow your gut. Get home to your people safe. I hope y'all have a good night. Like I said, if you have questions, you can hit me up in my inbox. I still look at it, even though it's mostly garbage. I do check it. And, I just hope y'all make it home safe, for real. And thank you, Jay.
absolutely, absolutely. And I'll get your information and everything, and I'll in case someone wants to send you a message, or in case they didn't catch it on the live. So I'll put that out for you. And
I do have I haven't, I've got it, the template set up. I haven't typed everything in yet. Hopefully I'll get that done tonight or tomorrow. But it is, and that will affect the state of Virginia with legislation that will require a police presence for all.
Okay, great. If you can give me that, we've been emailing back and forth, so whatever I can do to help support you.
And you too, like I said, what you're putting out there is important. It's good information, and it needs to be spread too. So I look forward to working with you.
Same here, same here. Well, again, my heart goes out to you. I want you to have a good night, and try to get some rest, and try to rest those eyes.
Yeah, it comes and goes. Like I said, mornings, I don't know why mornings are hardest, and then it's okay when I brace for it. It's
Right.
It's like, whoa.
Right, yeah.
I'm not used to it.
Right.
Excuse me. Y'all have a great night.
All right, you do the same, Leah. Have a good night. Thank you for joining me. All right. How do I get back here? I want to get back to my main page. All right. All right, guys, I don't know how to get back to my main page, but I want to thank everybody who joined on us here tonight. I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, send me a message. If you want to support Leah and her family, I'll get that information so that you guys could be able to do that. Maybe send her a message, or whatever it is. I'll go ahead and get ready to get that information together and put that out there for you guys. But again, I just want to say thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening with open hearts. And I hope you guys are really taking this seriously. Because, again, his life didn't have to be taken. And that could have been any one of us who are out here in the field. That's why it's important that you stay aware and you make sure that you maintain safety first. So you guys have a good night. Again, thank you for joining me. It's our time to be free. So I'll see you guys later.